Months later, the village thrived once more, stronger and united. Emma stood again on the hilltop, watching children play freely, laughter ringing in clear, joyous tones. She felt a deep sense of peace, hard-won, fragile, yet undeniably real. Gray Eagle approached, standing quietly beside her. "Your presence changed us." Emma shook her head gently. "Number you changed me." He smiled softly, eyes warm. "Perhaps we changed each other." She drew a steadying breath. "What comes next?" He looked thoughtfully at the horizon. "We live, Emma. We remember, rebuild, and grow stronger." She nodded slowly. "I never imagined I'd find peace again." "Peace finds those who fight for it," he said wisely. Emma turned, meeting his gaze fully. "Thank you for seeing strength in me when I couldn't." He inclined his head respectfully. "Strength was always there. It simply needed the right fire." Below, Aida waved warmly. Emma waved back, warmth blossoming fully inside her heart. Once she'd been a girl marked for death, alone, afraid, and lost. Now she was someone entirely new. The fire had burned away everything false, leaving only strength, courage, and the bonds she'd forged. She wasn't a victim, she wasn't prey. She was a phoenix, risen from ashes, ready to face whatever came next, unafraid and undefeated. And as the sun sank slowly, painting the sky with fiery colors, Emma felt the truth deep within her bones. She was finally, irrevocably free. The marriage was held at twilight, beneath the purple bruise of the setting sun. It was quick, solemn, without joy. Mary wore a simple dress, her brown hair hanging loose over her shoulders, eyes fierce but misted with unshed tears. Red Hawk stood silent beside her, dressed in ceremonial buckskin, feathers woven through his dark hair. The Apache elders spoke quiet words of union, but no one cheered, no one smiled. As the ceremony ended, Mary turned slowly toward the waiting horses, fear tightening her throat. This wasn't just marriage. It was exile, separation from everything familiar. Red Hawk mounted his horse, holding out his hand. She hesitated only briefly before gripping it, feeling the strength in his grasp. A promise or a prison, she didn't know which. They rode in silence, the village behind her shrinking until it became nothing but a blur on the horizon. Night fell swiftly, and the stars shone indifferent above. Hours passed before Red Hawk spoke, his voice a quiet rumble. "You will learn our ways." She lifted her chin, defiance flashing briefly in her eyes. "I may live among you, Chief, but I'll never be one of you." He turned to meet her gaze in the dim starlight. "That is your choice," he replied calmly, "but you cannot remain unchanged." She fell silent, fear settling in her chest. She didn't know what awaited her in his world, only that she had no choice but to face it. The Apache camp appeared suddenly, fires flickering like small stars against the darkness. Warriors watched her with distrustful eyes. Women whispered among themselves. Children peered from behind tents. Red Hawk led her toward a lodge at the village center, speaking quietly in Apache to an older woman. He turned to Mary, his expression unreadable. "This is your home now." She entered slowly, feeling the weight of the villagers' stares burning into her back. Inside, she stood stiffly, fighting back tears, the reality crushing her. She was married to a stranger, alone among people she had been raised to fear. And yet, as she sat near the flickering fire, she resolved that she would not break. She would not surrender. She would survive. Outside, under the cold gaze of the stars, Red Hawk watched the lodge quietly. He had seen the strength in her defiance, a fire that intrigued him. This woman was more than just a peace offering. She was a challenge, one he hadn't anticipated, but now silently welcomed. War had brought them together, but something deeper, more powerful than either had imagined, was already beginning to take root. The early morning sun seeped through the small gaps in the Apache lodge, painting streaks of gold across Mary's pale skin. She lay awake, having barely slept. Every muscle ached from the long ride, and her heart felt heavy beneath the weight of uncertainty. Outside, the sounds of the village waking echoed softly, children laughing, women talking quietly, the rhythmic chopping of wood. She rose slowly, wrapping the woven blanket around herself as if it could shield her from the curious eyes and quiet whispers that followed her everywhere. She stepped out, blinking in the sudden brightness. Immediately the chatter fell silent, every pair of eyes turning toward her. She stiffened her spine, determined not to show fear. An older woman approached, her face lined by years beneath the harsh sun. Her dark eyes studied Mary closely, her gaze neither kind nor cruel, simply assessing. "I am Nijoni," the woman said calmly, her voice strong yet soft. "Red Hawk asked me to guide you." Mary hesitated, studying the woman cautiously. She saw no hostility, only curiosity tempered by wariness. She nodded slowly. "I'm Mary." Nijoni's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "You must learn to live among us," she said simply. "It will not be easy. Many resent your presence." Mary swallowed the lump in her throat. "Including you." The woman paused, thoughtful. "My son died fighting your people. My grief is deep, but you did not wield the weapon. Perhaps you can become more than the cause of sorrow." Mary felt the raw honesty in the woman's words, and something inside her softened slightly. "Thank you," Nijoni nodded once, sharply. "Follow me." Throughout the day, Mary shadowed Nijoni. She learned to gather firewood, to grind corn, and prepare simple meals. Her fingers blistered, unaccustomed to the labor, but she bit her lip and persisted. She felt eyes upon her, constantly, heard whispered comments she couldn't understand. But she kept moving, determined to prove she wasn't weak. Near sunset, Red Hawk returned to the camp. His mere presence shifted the energy around him, the people visibly straightening their backs, their faces respectful yet guarded. His dark eyes sought Mary immediately, assessing her briefly from afar, before turning to speak quietly with his warriors. Later, when stars filled the sky, he approached her. She stood near the fire, warming hands raw from work. He regarded her silently for a moment, the firelight flickering across his sharp features. "Have you learned today?" he asked finally. She raised her chin defiantly. "I've learned that your people don't trust me." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, surprising her. "Did you expect differently?" "No," she admitted quietly, her gaze steady on his. "But I won't let it break me." His eyes softened slightly, a subtle shift she almost missed. "Strength is respected here, even from those we distrust." She studied him closely. "Do you trust me?" He didn't answer immediately, his gaze steady yet thoughtful. "Trust is earned, Mary." A brief silence settled between them, filled with unspoken questions. Finally she asked quietly, "And will I ever earn yours?" He stepped closer, his voice quiet yet firm. "You are strong and brave, but you are still an outsider. The path you walk will not be easy." Her heart tightened at his honesty, yet she appreciated it. "I didn't expect it would be." He regarded her thoughtfully before walking away into the darkness, leaving her alone beside the fire, the flames crackling softly in the silence. Days blurred into weeks, the edges of hostility within the village softening slightly as Mary persisted, silently proving herself. She learned Apache words, simple greetings first, then phrases, always watching Red Hawk from a distance. He was a mystery to her, a paradox of calm command and fierce strength. One afternoon, as she sat near the stream, washing clothes, a young girl named Kaya approached cautiously. Her dark eyes wide with curiosity, she pointed to Mary's hair, the golden strands catching sunlight. "Why is it like the sun?" she asked softly in halting English. Mary smiled faintly, surprised by the child's bravery. "I was born this way, just like you were born with your beautiful hair." Kaya reached out hesitantly, touching Mary's hair gently before smiling shyly. "It is pretty." The small gesture warmed Mary's chest, the first true sign of acceptance she had felt since arriving. A sudden, sharp scream ripped through the quiet moment. Mary turned swiftly, eyes wide. A young Apache warrior staggered into camp, blood soaking his arm, fear etched deeply into his face. Red Hawk rushed to him, catching him before he fell. "Settlers!" the injured man gasped, pain tight in his voice. "They ambushed our scouts." Mary's heart plummeted. She watched Red Hawk closely, seeing the anger flash in his dark eyes. His fists clenched briefly before he spoke. voice deep and calm, yet edged with steel. How many? 7, the warrior groaned, clutching his wounded arm. They come from Silver Creek. Red Hawk's jaw tightened visibly. Prepare the men, he ordered quietly. He turned, gaze landing briefly on Mary, his eyes darkened by a storm she couldn't decipher. Then he strode quickly toward the lodge, leaving her trembling. Mary followed him impulsively, heart pounding. Inside the lodge, he was arming himself silently. Please, she began urgently, her voice shaking. Don't go. More violence won't solve this. He didn't stop, didn't look at her. They attacked us first. They'll keep attacking, she insisted desperately. Let me speak to my father. Finally, he turned sharply, eyes blazing. You would return to those who betray even you? She faltered slightly but stood firm. Not to stay, to stop this madness before it escalates. His gaze searched hers fiercely. And if you fail? Her breath trembled, yet her voice was steady. Then I will have tried. He studied her for a long, intense moment. Finally, he sighed, shoulders lowering just slightly. You are either foolish or very brave. Maybe both, she whispered softly. Red Hawk stepped closer, eyes deep and unreadable. You will not go alone. She felt relief flood her veins, warmth mixing with confusion. Who? He raised his chin slightly. I will go with you. Her eyes widened. But your people need you here. They also need peace, he said quietly. I will trust you, Mary. This once. Something shifted between them then, a delicate thread connecting two worlds. He had offered trust, despite all that stood between them, and she understood suddenly what that meant. It was a beginning. Outside, warriors prepared horses, tension crackling like lightning in the air. Mary met Red Hawk's gaze, hope mingling with fear. The road ahead was uncertain, perilous, but for the first time she felt she wasn't facing it alone. Together they mounted their horses, riding side by side toward the horizon, toward a confrontation neither truly desired, yet neither could avoid. Mary knew one thing clearly. This journey was more than an attempt to stop a war. It was a test, a challenge of trust, and perhaps the first steps toward a peace neither had expected. The ride toward Silver Creek was long and quiet. A tense silence hung between Mary and Red Hawk, the steady thud of hooves against hard-packed earth the only sound for miles. She stole occasional glances at him, noting the way his jaw remained firmly set, eyes always scanning the horizon. He seemed a pillar of strength, yet beneath that quiet power, Mary saw a flicker of uncertainty, a silent acknowledgement of the risk he was taking by trusting her. They paused at a narrow stream to water the horses. The sun blazed mercilessly overhead, casting sharp shadows across the rugged landscape. Mary knelt by the water's edge, splashing the cool liquid onto her heated skin. Red Hawk remained watchful, his expression unreadable. You fear seeing your father again, he finally said, breaking the silence. Mary's fingers stilled in the water. I fear what he'll do when he sees me returning with you. Red Hawk's gaze sharpened. Do you regret coming? She looked up, eyes locking onto his. Number. But my father is stubborn and prideful. A faint, humorless smile tugged at Red Hawk's lips. So are many men. Pride kills more swiftly than any weapon. Mary rose, brushing dust from her skirts. That's why this has to end. He needs to see there's another path. Your father sees what he wants, Red Hawk murmured, thoughtful. You must make him see the truth instead. She nodded slowly, a knot of anxiety forming deep in her chest. By evening, the familiar shapes of Silver Creek came into view. Rows of wooden buildings lined the main street, illuminated by soft lantern light. Mary's pulse quickened as she recognized faces staring from doorways, shock quickly turning to suspicion. Red Hawk rode tall and proud beside her, unfazed by the hostile gazes. The townspeople whispered as they passed, tension thickening like an approaching storm. Mary held her head high, meeting their judgment with quiet defiance. They stopped before the Henshaw home, the largest house in town, a two-story structure looming in the dusk. Mary dismounted, legs trembling slightly. Red Hawk stayed atop his horse, watchful and wary. Be careful, he warned quietly. She met his eyes briefly, offering a hesitant nod. I will. Mary pushed open the heavy oak door, stepping into the dimly lit interior. Colonel Henshaw stood near the fireplace, turning sharply at her entrance, eyes wide with disbelief and anger. Mary, he growled, stepping forward, voice harsh. What in God's name? She straightened her spine, mustering courage. I've come to stop this madness. The attacks, the killing, it must end, Father. Henshaw's eyes darkened dangerously. You brought that savage here? She flinched at his venom, yet stood her ground. He's here because you won't stop. You've broken your promises, attacked innocent people. It's wrong. Innocent? He laughed bitterly. They've killed our men, taken our land. Mary shook her head, desperate. This cycle will never end unless someone breaks it. Red Hawk is willing. Red Hawk? Henshaw spat the name like poison. Is that the savage who stole my daughter? He didn't steal me, she said firmly, and I'm not here because he forced me. I'm here to save lives, ours and theirs. Henshaw stared, his chest rising and falling heavily. You've turned against your own people. No, Mary replied softly. I'm trying to save them. All of them. The door creaked behind her. Red Hawk entered silently, his presence powerful, even without speaking. Henshaw stiffened, hand instinctively reaching for the revolver at his side. Mary stepped quickly between them. Father, stop! Red Hawk's voice was calm, unwavering. I've not come for blood. I came for peace. Henshaw sneered. Your kind doesn't know peace. And yours does? Red Hawk retorted softly. You break treaties, raid villages, then call us savages. Mary placed a gentle hand on her father's arm. Please, Father, this can end. Right here, right now. For a moment, the colonel's eyes softened, glimpses of regret breaking through the anger. But pride quickly returned, hardening his expression. They killed our people, Mary. Red Hawk's voice sharpened slightly. Only after you attacked first. This violence began with your greed. My people have only defended what is ours. The colonel's jaw tightened, and for a long moment silence filled the room, charged with tension. Finally he exhaled deeply, shaking his head. Even if I believed you, the others won't. Too much blood has been shed. Red Hawk took a careful step forward. It can stop today. If you are truly a leader, your people will listen. Mary watched her father closely, hope flickering faintly in her chest. He hesitated, wrestling with himself. Even if we make peace, he began reluctantly, there will be those who refuse. Those who want vengeance. Red Hawk nodded slowly. Yes, but we must start somewhere. Together. The colonel's gaze shifted slowly between them, lingering longest on Mary. Finally he nodded, though grudgingly. I'll call a meeting. Tomorrow at dawn. A sigh escaped Mary's lips, relief washing over her. But Red Hawk remained wary. Trust is fragile, Colonel. If you break it again, there won't be another chance. Henshaw met his gaze evenly. The same applies to you. That night, Mary sat alone in her old room, feeling strangely out of place among familiar things. She heard footsteps outside, a gentle knock at her door. Come in, she called softly. Red Hawk stepped inside, his presence seeming to fill the small space. His eyes briefly took in her surroundings, her simple belongings, before landing softly on her. You are troubled, he observed quietly. She nodded slowly. I fear tomorrow. One mistake could end everything. He stepped closer, voice soft yet firm. We cannot control what others do. We can only control ourselves. Her eyes met his, lingering there. And if peace fails? He hesitated, a flicker of sadness briefly shadowing his strong features. Then we fight again, but we fight knowing we tried. Mary sighed softly, feeling vulnerable yet strangely comforted by his presence. I'm glad you're here. He studied her carefully, his voice gentle. As am I. Silence stretched between them, warm and comforting rather than tense. Finally he moved to leave, but paused, turning back. Whatever happens, Mary, you are not alone. The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within her. She managed a small, grateful smile. Thank you. He nodded once, quietly leaving her alone with her thoughts. At dawn, Silver Creek gathered, townspeople shifting restlessly, eyes narrowed with suspicion. Across from them stood Red Hawk, calm and steady. Colonel Henshaw stepped forward, addressing the gathered settlers. "We've lost too much," he began, voice firm yet tired. "But revenge won't bring back our dead. Today we choose peace." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, doubt lingering heavily. Mary stood between them, heart racing. Red Hawk stepped beside her, his presence reassuring. "Peace will not erase our grief," Red Hawk spoke clearly, "but it may prevent future sorrow." The settlers watched him, distrust slowly softening into cautious curiosity. Finally, a woman stepped forward, Anna Collins, whose son had died in earlier violence. "Can we truly trust you?" she asked shakily. Red Hawk met her gaze gently. "Trust is built slowly, but we must begin." Anna studied him, then looked to Mary. Finally, she nodded. "Then let's start." As hesitant conversations began, Mary felt tears sting her eyes, relief mingling with hope. She glanced at Red Hawk, who stood strong, silently watching peace take root, fragile yet real. For the first time, Mary allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this union, born from desperation, could become something lasting. Something true, something neither of them ever expected. Days turned into weeks, and the fragile peace in Silver Creek gradually took root. Though trust was still thin as morning mist, each dawn that rose without violence was a quiet victory. Mary worked tirelessly alongside Red Hawk, bridging the gap between settlers and Cherokee, translating hesitant conversations and helping both sides understand their common fears and hopes. Yet beneath her outward calm, Mary felt a persistent restlessness, an uncertainty she couldn't name. Her bond with Red Hawk had deepened into something more profound than either had anticipated. They shared silent glances across crowded meetings, quiet conversations by the evening fire, and mutual respect born from hardship. But the future remained unclear, unspoken. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Mary stood alone at the edge of town, her gaze distant. Red Hawk approached silently, his footsteps blending with the whisper of tall grass. "You are troubled again," he observed softly. Mary sighed, turning to face him, honesty shining in her eyes. "I am happy peace has come, yet I feel lost, unsure where I truly belong." His gaze softened. "You belong wherever your heart chooses. The land beneath your feet does not define you." She searched his face, her voice trembling slightly. "And what if my heart has chosen something impossible?" Red Hawk stepped closer, his voice gentle yet firm. "Nothing is impossible, not when two hearts speak clearly." She drew a shaky breath, heart pounding. "Then hear mine. It speaks of you." His eyes widened briefly in surprise, then warmed. Slowly he lifted a hand, gently brushing his fingertips against her cheek. "You have become more to me than peace, Mary. More than duty." A tear slipped from her eye, catching the fading sunlight. "And you to me. Yet our worlds are one now," he interrupted softly. "We have already built the bridge. We only need courage to cross." In that moment, Mary saw clearly the path ahead. "Then let us cross together." He cupped her face tenderly, their foreheads touching gently in the quiet acknowledgement of their shared choice. For a long, peaceful moment, only the wind spoke, carrying their silent promise across the endless plains. But peace was never simple. Just as hope blossomed, whispers of dissent rose among the settlers, led by those unwilling to let old grudges rest. Simon Greer, a wealthy rancher who'd lost sons in past conflicts, gathered men in secret, speaking of vengeance and justice denied. Late one evening, Mary awoke to urgent pounding on her door. Outside stood young Samuel, breathless and pale. "Miss Mary, they've taken him! Simon's men! They ambushed Red Hawk!" Fear seized her chest. "Where?" "West Trail," Samuel gasped. "They mean to hang him at dawn." Panic surged through Mary. Without hesitation, she grabbed a rifle and ran to the stable, saddling her horse hastily. She urged the animal onward, heart hammering with every desperate stride toward the darkened hills. As dawn stained the horizon, she reached the clearing. Simon stood beneath a large oak, rope looped over a high branch. Red Hawk, hands bound but head held high, watched defiantly as the settlers jeered. "Stop!" Mary shouted, sliding from her horse and stepping between Red Hawk and Simon. "Have you lost your minds?" Simon sneered. "Step aside, Mary. Justice demands blood." She lifted her chin, voice steady. "Then take mine. If you hang him, you kill everything we built. You plunge us back into endless violence." Uneasy murmurs rippled through the crowd. Simon hesitated, eyes narrowed. "He killed my sons." Mary shook her head fiercely. "Red Hawk did not. War did. Hatred did. He chose peace when vengeance was easy. Are we lesser than him?" Red Hawk spoke quietly behind her. "I grieve your loss, Simon, but killing me won't heal you." Simon's jaw tightened, but doubt flickered in his eyes. The townsfolk shifted uncertainly, their thirst for vengeance colliding with the raw honesty of Mary's words. Slowly, Anna Collins stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. "Mary's right. How many more sons and daughters will we bury before our hatred is satisfied?" Simon stared at Anna, shoulders sagging. His hands trembled, then slowly released the rope. Silence fell as it slipped from his grasp, pooling lifelessly on the ground. He met Mary's gaze, anguish evident. "Then what do we do?" She extended a hand toward him. "We heal." Days passed, and a new quiet settled over Silver Creek. Not merely the fragile silence of wary truce, but something deeper, born from a shared moment of truth. Red Hawk and Mary became symbols of what could be achieved when courage overcame fear. One warm evening, as lanterns cast gentle pools of light across the newly bustling town square, Red Hawk walked with Mary beneath the stars. His hand gently took hers, their fingers entwining naturally. "Do you still fear the future?" he asked softly. She shook her head, smiling gently. "Not anymore. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." He halted beneath the wide expanse of sky, turning to her fully, sincerity radiating from his gaze. "Among my people there is a saying, 2 rivers become one only when both surrender their separate paths." Mary smiled warmly. "Then let our rivers join." With quiet reverence, Red Hawk placed his forehead against hers. "From this day forward, my path is yours." "As mine is yours," she whispered. Their kiss was gentle yet powerful, a quiet affirmation beneath the boundless western sky. Around them, life continued. Children laughed, men and women spoke easily, the gentle hum of peace taking hold, stronger than fear, stronger than hate. Many months later, beneath the same vast sky, Mary stood beside Red Hawk, overlooking the Cherokee camp. She wore clothing crafted by skilled hands, jewelry gifted by those she now called family. Her father, Colonel Henshaw, stood nearby, face softened by newfound understanding and acceptance. "Peace suits you," Henshaw murmured quietly, glancing at his daughter with pride. She smiled softly. "As it does you, father." Red Hawk approached, placing a gentle hand on Mary's shoulder. His gaze met the colonel's, mutual respect passing silently between the two men who had once faced each other as enemies. "Our children will know a different story," Red Hawk said simply. Henshaw nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, because you two chose a different path." Mary rested her head gently against Red Hawk's shoulder, heart full with gratitude. The path they'd chosen had been fraught with fear and uncertainty, yet courage had transformed it into something beautiful. Together, they had built a legacy stronger than war, stronger than prejudice, one born of love, understanding, and the bravery to forge a future no one had believed possible. As the sun dipped low, bathing the land in warm amber hues, Mary knew without doubt that peace, like love, was not found, but created, one step, one choice, one heart at a time.